Hey guys, welcome back. Oops. Yeah, that's where we are. All right, guys, we are getting ready today to dive back into story time with Miss Patterson. Going to be telling you more about our story. When last we met together, we learned about some of the acts that went into place. Sugar Act, Stamp Act, the Quartering Act, and what the colonists did in reaction to that. We have Sam Adams forming the Sons of Liberty. And, we talked about protests and boycotts and threatening the British merchants, tarring and feathering. So because of all of this, no one in the colonies wanted to be the stamp agent, the person that had to go and collect the taxes. They were a little scared. So because of the actions of the Sons of Liberty, no one wanted that job. So let's find out what's happening right after these events. So we're going to open back up the article and look at paragraph number 3. All right, so moving on down, we've read paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and here starts paragraph 3. It goes across the page, so you might have to flip over if you've printed it. In 1765, the Stamp Act Congress met in New York. The Congress was made up of representatives from many colonies. So a group of people got together in New York. Representatives, that's kind of a big word. I would highlight it. Let's talk about it. Representatives are people chosen to go and represent or give the opinion of the colonies. For example, if we wanted to get Miss Goodwin to let us have extra recess, we decide we really want extra recess, we wouldn't send the entire 4th grade to her office. That's like 180 students. We wouldn't send all of those kids into her office. What we might do is say, okay, who can speak really well and go share our idea? We might choose one person from each classroom to go and share our idea with her, to go and represent our ideas about the benefits of extra recess. So that's kind of what happened in New York. A few from each colony went to New York to talk about the Stamp Act, to talk about what are we going to do about it. We don't like this, okay? So they were called the Stamp Act Congress, or the group that met together to talk about the Stamp Act. The same year, the Sons of Liberty, that secret organization of colonists in favor of liberty, was formed. So while the Sons of Liberty is forming, the Stamp Act Congress is also meeting. And if you think about it, we kind of have like the outlaws, the Sons of Liberty, the rebel rousers, and then the Stamp Act Congress was a little more refined, but both groups are trying to achieve the same thing, to stop these laws from going into place. So I need a new page because I'm out of space. So just on the next page, we're kind of creating the storybook of our history, okay? I'm gonna write 1765 Stamp Act Congress. Okay, so let me zoom in. Whoop, you can kind of see my other notes bleeding through. 1765 Stamp Act Congress. I mean, Congress just means a group of people meeting. Yes, I'm going to box it out. And I'm going to highlight it. So from my book, The American Revolution for Kids, if you'll allow me, humor me for a minute. We're going to a little story time with Miss Patterson. So the Sons of Liberty turned to violence to get their way. They threatened merchants who traded with England. They destroyed the homes of British government agents. By the time the Stamp Act was about to go into effect, there wasn't a person in the colonies who would serve as the stamp agent. Lawyer James Otis wrote to influential men in every colony and invited them to send delegates or representatives to meet and discuss the Stamp Act. Representatives from 9 of the colonies met in New York. The other 4 supported the idea, but didn't choose to send anyone at the time. This meeting became called the Stamp Act Congress. It was the first time that the colonies had worked together for a common cause. Before this time, they had all acted like 13 separate colonies, 13 separate countries. Now they had a common goal. A Massachusetts delegate, Dr. Joseph Warren, noticed it. He said, "Until now, the colonies were foolishly jealous of one another. Now they are united. As allies, they would be more powerful." The delegates were angry about the Stamp Act, but most still wanted to remain a part of Great Britain. Most of the people in the colonies felt the same way. Though they were angry, few actually thought about breaking away from England. They simply wanted their voices heard. John Dickinson, a delegate from Pennsylvania, wrote a declaration to King George in Parliament denying their right to tax the colonies without consent. The Stamp Act Congress sent that declaration to England. Well, King George and the members of Parliament already knew how the colonists felt. The boycotts were actually hurting British merchants. An American visitor in London, Mr. Benjamin Franklin, was questioned by members of the British Parliament about the situation. What was the temper of America towards Great Britain before the Stamp Act? Well, Franklin said, it was the best in the world. And now? Parliament asked. It's very much altered. He told Parliament that the colonists would not pay unless compelled by force of arms, meaning you're going to have to send guns over. They're not going to pay. When the hated Stamp Act was about to go into effect, the Sons of Liberty planned special demonstrations. Merchants shut down their businesses. People pretend to be in mourning. When you're in mourning, someone's died. You wear all black. You pull out your handkerchiefs and you cry. Oh, they tolled bells. They flew flags at half-mast. In one city, a fake funeral was held. And on the coffin, which they paraded down the road, they wrote the word liberty. It was clear what the people thought was dying. They thought liberty was dying. Freedom was dying. The riots, the boycotts, and declarations were actually heard across the ocean. And so Parliament decided to cancel or repeal, take back the Stamp Act. The colonists were overjoyed. When the news reached the colonies, people rejoiced. They sang and danced in the streets. They gathered around huge bonfires and cheered for their kinsmen across the ocean. The king was on their side, after all. Feelings of loyalty swelled in their hearts. They celebrated King George's birthday with festivals and banquets in his honor. Statues of the king were unveiled in town squares. Yay, everything's great. Wait for it. Okay, guys. So Stamp Act Congress, let's take some notes about that part of the story. Here we go. Our new word today, representatives. From the colonies met to decide what to do about those taxes. Especially the Stamp Act. Stamp Act Congress. And they decided to boycott British goods. When I think of boycott, I cross my arms like, no, I'm not going to buy it. Boycott. We're not buying your stuff. Okay. So here's my bag of sugar, my wine, your tea. We're not going to buy your tea either. Cup and saucer. And I'm going to take my highlighter. I got another color highlighter. Let's see what I got. Maybe a different color. Maybe my red pen. I'm going to use my red pen. There we go. I'm going to mark it out. I'm boycotting it. I'm not buying these British goods. Bye-bye. Okay. And because of this, because they boycotted and it was hurting the pockets, the money of the British are like, okay, we won't do the Stamp Act. We'll repeal it. We will take it away. Okay, so when I do repeal, I stretch out and pull it back. I'm getting that act and I'm taking it away. So, yay! Woohoo! Yay! Britain repealed the Stamp Act. Capital. So big words that we've gotten today: representatives, boycott, and repeal. Okay. And remember, folks were thrilled about this. They're dancing in the streets. I'm going to have some folks dancing. A little lady in a little dress. There we go. Woohoo. Dude dancing with her. He's got a little, oh, he's kicking it out. Yeah. Alrighty. A little music for him. They're so excited. Yay, the king's on our side. They're dancing the streets. They're having fun around bonfires. Oh, it's my fire. I have a little red pen to make it look like a fire. Yay, everything's great. Awesome. They repealed the Stamp Act. Woo! Womp, womp, womp. Because this isn't the events to everybody's happy and party in the streets. This is the events to war. So you guessed it. They celebrated too soon. You can pause if you need a moment to take notes on the Stamp Act and their celebration, because I'm going to spoil it with the next bit. So if you need to pause, do so. And here it comes. The colonists had celebrated too soon. The Stamp Act was canceled, but at the same time, Parliament passed a new law called the Declaratory Act. With this law, Britain held on to its right to tax the colonists without them having a say. And soon it did. Charlie Townshend wasn't about to give up on taxing the colonies. One day, after a few glasses of champagne, he stood up and gave a speech in front of Parliament. So imagine, if you don't know what champagne is, it's an alcoholic beverage. Old Charlie Townshend had a little too much champagne. Now remember, they took away the Stamp Act. They repealed the Stamp Act because they were a little scared of the boycotts and the Sons of Liberty and the tarring and feathering. Well, Charlie Townshend had him a couple glasses of champagne. And after his couple of glasses of champagne, he was feeling about 10 feet tall and bulletproof, so to speak. Meaning, he was feeling pretty good. He didn't care. So he stood up in front of Parliament and he scolded the members for taking back the Stamp Act. Why'd you do that? He was scolding them, getting on to them, all right? And when one of them replied, well, we dare not tax the colonists, he boasted, I will. So picture this. Charlie Townshend up in front of Parliament, pretty much calling them chicken. You took back the Stamp Act. We have every right to tax them. And someone says, no, they're tarring and feathering people. We shouldn't do that. And he's like, you're chicken. If you won't tax them, I will. So at his urging, Parliament passed the Townshend Act, named after Charlie Townshend. This required the colonists to pay taxes on glass, lead, paper again, and tea. So now, if you'll remember, there are about 4 beverages that the colonists can drink. Okay? There's no Coca-Cola or soda, okay? We've got wine, beer, tea, and every now and then there's clean water. They already have a tax on wine, and now they're going to tax their tea. That means half of everything they drink, 2/4 of everything they drink, they're now paying extra money to Britain for. This is a problem, okay? So let's take a note on the Townshend Act. So it was 2 years. This is in 1767. We have the Townshend Acts. All right, I'm going to move it up a little bit. Try and make yours look like mine. If you keep your notes organized, the quizzes on Friday will be much easier. So the Townshend Act taxed glass, lead, paper, and tea. All righty. So our dude that we learned about here that might help you add on to your story, there he is. I'm giving him a big old glass of champagne. It's like the same size as he is. There are dangers in drinking too much, guys. You might make a fool of yourself like Charlie Townsend, because he was forever after that known as Champagne Charlie. So I'm giving him a little word bubble. You may be scared to tax them, but I will. A little bit for you. So of course, the whole reason they were taking some of the taxes off of the people is they were scared of the Sons of Liberty. So what do you think happened next? Of course, the Sons of Liberty fight back. They continue with their protests, their boycotting, their threatening, their meeting under the Liberty Tree, hanging dummies from it, tarring and feathering, destroying property. They continue with their antics to get the attention of Great Britain and let them know that they're unhappy. No taxation without representation. Again, the reason they're so upset is you're not letting us have any say. We're not getting any benefit from these taxes. You're just taking our money and destroying our lives. We can't afford to pay all of this money on everything that we use. And you have soldiers living in our homes. You have soldiers with guns walking up and down our streets where our children live. Of course, the Sons of Liberty are unhappy about this. You probably would be too. Can you imagine if when you walked out of the school building, there were soldiers from another place with guns? Can you imagine how tense it is if you walked into a shop and there are soldiers there with guns and you're scared to say anything for fear that the soldiers might think that you're a rebel, that you might belong to the Sons of Liberty? So there's a lot of tension building around this time in the colonies. So as we're talking about this, I want you to imagine what it might have felt like to be one of the children in the colonies at the time, or to be an adult in the colony at the time. So these things were affecting their lives. All right, we'll have to find out more of what happens next time. Bye, guys.